what's up, movie losers? This is Lindsey for the Moss Isley Happy Hour, where tonight we're going to be reviewing Christie Golden's new book, Battlefront II, Inferno Squad. So just to put this all in perspective and where this falls in the storyline and the larger Star Wars galaxy, this book is going to be sort of an introduction to the new video game that's coming out this November, Battlefront II. There is an original Battlefront book, but I would skip that entirely. This is all new characters, new plot lines. Nothing really ties in to the first Battlefront, and honestly, that one kind of sucks. So skip that one, go right to Battlefront 2. It is absolutely fantastic. Because what it does is show us how the Empire started to put themselves back together after the destruction of the Death Star. So they are now tightening their own security. They're really aggressively going after these rebel faction cells and these different terrorist groups that might pose a threat. So the first step that they take is setting up Inferno Squad, which is this elite team. It is the best of the best. Consists of 4 people originally. So we see it set up because this book starts off right at the destruction of the first Death Star. And we're introduced to Iden Versio, who is one of the very few TIE fighter pilots to actually survive the Death Star attack. So she's put in charge of this team, where at first, their first missions for a while are actually to go after high-level officers in the Empire. And we see how they're now cracking down on people who might be selling information, messing around with different funds, things like that. So really interesting, great characters, but where it picks up is when Inferno Squad has to go really deep undercover in one of these rebel cells, and they're really just put in with these terrorists over a course of months. And we see how maybe the guys that we always knew as the good guys, not that good. And the Empire, which we always thought are the bad guys, have the right idea and are going about things the right way. So really interesting book, great read, great characters, but I would say there's a few big takeaways here, and there might be some tie-ins to what we see in the future. But really the biggest takeaway has been the theme here of blurring the lines between the good guys and the bad guys. So that's something we've been seeing in all the new canon books and comic books, TV shows, and something that I expect to see a lot more of in the new main trilogy, the new Skywalker saga, with Rey and Kylo Ren. But this book just does an incredible job of showing how those lines, might be a little bit blurred and not necessarily what we expect. Other big takeaways here are the great new characters. So there's not too many background or supporting characters, but what Christie Golden has always done really well in her Star Wars books is just focusing so intensely on the new characters she gives us. So there aren't any characters where at the end of this you think, well, what was their point? They could have done more. I didn't really need them. Anyone who she introduces in this book plays a really vital role to the story, and everyone is important, and everyone is just so well developed. You really connect with each one of them, and you understand why they're there and how they play into this larger story. Like I said before, it's demoralizing the rebellion, it's humanizing the Empire. So just continuing that theme that I think we're going to keep seeing from there. New characters, like I said, there are really 5 new characters that we're introduced to here. Now, I will say that with the supporting characters and those background ones, some of them we have seen before. So if you've read Rebel Rising, if you've watched the Clone Wars, I think you're going to get a lot more out of this book. If you have the time, I would even recommend going back and reading Rebel Rising first, but definitely don't miss this book. In terms of new characters, though, of course, Iden Versio. So she is the main character. This is mostly told from her perspective. And she is unlike anything we've seen before. So she is Imperial through and through. She comes from a planet that really supports and gets behind the Empire. She comes from a family of, Imperial supporters. But the thing is, she doesn't think that what she's doing is wrong in any way. So we see her, she has these strict principles that she sticks to. She is a really compassionate person. And she just is convinced that this is the best thing for the largest amount of people. And she's going to do whatever it takes to support that and play her role. So she's also really great because she's just an incredible pilot. We see that right off the bat. But she's really driven and really hardworking. And one of the things I keep driving home with her is that because her family has a much larger role in the Empire, it's expected that she can kind of be handed certain things, but she never does. So we see consistently how hard she is working for people's respect and working to do what's right for her team, not just herself, but she wants to earn everything that she's given. So it's just a really great, refreshing character that I don't think we've really seen, at least not in the new canon. And I would like to see a lot more with her. I know we're going to get her in the video game, played by Janina Gavankar. Get back into her in a second. But Iden is a great character. So other than her, we're introduced to Gideon Hask, who, like her, great pilot. And he's actually her best friend from the time they were younger. Unlike Iden, though, he doesn't necessarily have that strong moral center. He's more of the brash, just gonna do what he wants, not necessarily thinking analytically. But he doesn't have that set of principles and that moral compass that Iden has. So that's always interesting to see how they play off each other. Then there is Del Mico, and he's the oldest one on Inferno Squad, and he's the engineer, the mechanic, the repair guy, but really lighthearted, especially for someone in the Empire. But he's going to be the one who's like making jokes, and his role is interesting. He's the one who keeps everyone else together, just because he is such a likable guy. He is the family man of the group, and just pulls everyone else together. The fourth member is actually the youngest, and I have to check the pronunciation on her name. It's Sin, I think. Sen. Youngest one, about 20 years old, and she is an intelligence officer with a photographic memory. So that comes into play really often, but very rarely how you would expect. And it's actually, usually when it comes into play, it's pretty sad, and shows how she kind of struggles with that, and it not only alienates her, but it really weighs her down in a lot of ways instead of just being helpful. So when they first kind of mention and start pulling in this photographic memory, first thought is kind of like, this is just going to be an easy out for most things, but they do a really good job with that. And then the fifth and final new character, who's really a main focus here, is Iden's father, Admiral Versio. So he is the Nick Fury, the guy who this team reports to, and he gives them the orders. He's the main guy in charge. And from what we know about Battlefront II, the video game, he's going to stay kind of a key player. So if you haven't seen the trailer for that, we'll put a link in the description. Check that out. He's in that. I think he's going to be a good character, but the way they develop him here is just very strict, keeps to the code, all about the Empire, not so much about his family, things like that. So just 5 really well developed characters here. Each one we spend a good amount of time with, and they all play into each other really, really well. So in terms of themes, kind of like the key takeaways here: Empire good, rebels can be bad. But this is something we are just seeing in every single book and movie that's coming out. So I actually have a series of articles I wrote for Clashing Sabers. We'll also put those links in the description if you want to check those out. But it really explores how we're seeing this big shift and we're seeing these blurred lines. And just like that, we're seeing that maybe being too extreme on either side isn't necessarily a good thing. So this really plays at the idea because now we have these rebel terrorists who are so extremely against the Empire mixed in with these strong Imperial officers who are so against the rebels. So it plays on into that idea of extremism, and just like that, one of the more intense themes in this book is how everyone needs to lose their innocence in a time of war, and you can't really afford to want to do what's right all of the time. And it's almost like a keeping up with the Joneses, like, well, they did this, so I'm okay doing this. But this book really takes it to a level that you don't expect from, one, Star Wars, and certainly not Disney, but just this really intense, I can't believe they're going to do this, oh my god, they did that, oh my god, you know, there's no way they should have done that, that's obviously the wrong thing. But without giving too much away, there are a few scenes that are really intense here, and just make you kind of stop and think, and gets you right in the gut. So in terms of what else this ties into, obviously the video game Battlefront II. So this was our introduction into these characters and this team and how they work together. But by the time we circle back to that video game, they'll have been together for years, and they're going to be working a lot better, more efficiently together, and then of course just facing a totally different set of challenges. But really the biggest thing I think is going to stand out is the actress who plays Iden Versio, Janina Gavankar. So she seemed pretty involved in this book. She actually does the audiobook recording if you check that out. But she apparently kept calling Christy Golden and just wanted to get as much information as she could about this character. And from everything I've seen so far, she put so much care and devotion into this character and is continuing to. And she has so much passion for this character and Star Wars and the video game. So I would actually like to see a lot more, not just with Iden Versio, but with Janina kind of at the helm. I think she is going to be the fan dream come true for this role. There are also these purple crystals, and they seem to be a predecessor to droids or some kind of technology. But what's unique is Christy Golden touched on them, rushed through something really quickly with them, and never fully answered certain things, which isn't really her style at all. She is someone who takes great care with every plot point or every symbol, things like that. And this just seemed really rushed through and opened up a ton of questions that we didn't get an answer to. So my personal theories, I think these crystals might be some kind of Kyber crystal related to the Kyber crystal, predated them. They just seem absolutely ancient, but still with a lot of power behind them. So I would love to see more of those purple crystals tie in somehow to one of the main movies or another show, something like that. But I don't think we're done seeing those, and those are questions that I really do hope get answered. I might even do a separate video just on that, because I do think it's going to be important. And then in a similar fashion, if you've been following along with any of the other books, for some reason, trees and the Force have really, there's this weird connection between them. And they're dropping little hints here and there that these trees are going to be really important. And there are trees on Iden Versio's home planet that, again, sort of rushed through. But from all the promotional things we've seen for the video game, they're going to play, I think, a pretty important element, or at least the home planet will. So, to be honest, I think the reason these ones really stuck out to me is because the way they look, really similar to the weirwood trees in Game of Thrones, and maybe that just caught my attention. But there are some different passages here about these trees and being seen pretty heavily in different photos. So I think those are also going to play some kind of important role in the future. And that's actually something I do think we'll see more of in The Last Jedi, because these trees have been linked to Luke and Leia before. So I expect some kind of tie-in there. Overall, though, I would give this book absolutely a 5 out of 5. It might have just been low expectations. I love Christy Golden. I love her style of writing. But this book was absolutely perfect in terms of the different characters that are really well developed. There's not a lot of fan service going on where we're not just given different names of people just as a nice little Easter egg. Everything seems really important. So this is just a quick, easy read. Definitely recommend getting your hands on as soon as you can, and I'm really excited to see what happens with this team in the video game. And I'm hoping that we get more from Christy Golden pretty soon, because I think that this was just perfect characters, perfect writing, and I'm excited to see where else this goes. So that wraps it up for Battlefront II Inferno Squad. Feel free to like this video, subscribe to the channel. Definitely want to stay tuned. We're going to be doing a lot more reviews. If there is a book that you want to see done quickly, just let me know in the comments and we'll make sure we get to that one soon. But again, if you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear them. Love to hear what you thought of Inferno Squad 2. And just stay tuned for more reviews. We're going to be doing Phasma next. It comes out for Force Friday, so stick around for that. Alright, later movie losers.
Do it.